Hey everyone, John from Bike Fit Advisor. So it'll come as no surprise that there are people out there that are going to be a tougher bike fit than others. I did a video and an article not too long ago about how, the way the bike industry has changed in the last 20 years, it can sometimes make things more difficult to fit because now there are fewer sizes. Fewer sizes means more people falling in between sizes. Now I've gotten a lot of questions about this, the most common one being, which bike out there will fit me best? But this is a really difficult question to answer because it's something that that's done kind of on an individual or case-by-case basis. It's really difficult or next to impossible for me to tell you which bike is going to fit you best. But based on the questions I got, it also became clear that I should do a quick video about helping people determine whether they're going to be an easy or a difficult bike fit. And I thought about it for a while, and this is what I came up with. And it's actually pretty simple. It's just going to be a basic two-step little test here. And we'll talk about a third step, but that gets a little bit more complicated, and I'll dive into that in a second. So the first one we'll look at is your inseam length, and more specifically, what your inseam length is compared to your overall height. Inseam can be measured relatively easily using a spirit level, or you might just call it a level, in your bike shorts in either barefoot or stocking feet. So you hold the level between your legs, and you have to pull it up with just a little bit of pressure just to make sure you kind of get an accurate reading. Make sure it's level, and then you can measure from the top of the level down to the ground. Now we want to compare this to your overall height. We can take this number then and divide it by your overall height. So you take the inseam in inches or centimeters, whichever you prefer, and then divide it by your height in that same unit. And you get a fraction. You can convert that to a percentage. It seems about 46% seems to be about average. So when your inseam is about 46% of your overall height. So what this means is if you are above 46%, meaning your inseam is longer relative to your height, this could mean that you might fit a bike more poorly, or it might be more difficult for you to fit a bike. The lower the number, so 41, 42% of your total height, the easier it'll be to fit. Now, why would this be? Because when your inseam is a greater percentage of your total height, then this means that your torso is a smaller percentage of your total height. And torso length has a much greater impact on how well you're going to fit a bike than your inseam does. Inseam is not a great metric to go by for measuring for a bike itself. Why not just measure torso length? Frankly, measuring inseam is just simpler. So the second factor would be our reach or our wingspan. And again, we're going to more specifically look at this, how it relates to our overall height. Frankly, both of these measurements, inseam and wingspan, are easiest measured when you do have a partner helping you out. Wingspan, you can stand there with your arms straight out at your sides and have somebody measure fingertip to fingertip. My preferred method is actually to use a corner somewhere in your house, like an outside corner, not an inside corner. So what you would do is, I think kneeling down is a little bit easier. You put one fingertip on the ground, barely touching the ground, right along this corner, and reach along the edge of this wall as high as you can with your other fingertip, and try and keep your shoulders as close to the wall as you can. And have somebody mark where you can reach to, and then you can just measure from the ground up to this mark, and that'll give you your reach. And then you can do your height. Obviously, you can stand in the same way and have somebody mark that. Now, we're not going to do a fraction or ratio with these two. We're actually just going to subtract your wingspan and subtract your height from that. So most people average is about 0 or around 1 or less than 1. So meaning our reach is almost exactly the same as our height, or maybe it's an inch longer or a half an inch shorter, somewhere in that range. I myself, I'm actually what I would term it +4. And some people call this your ape index, which I love that term. And ape index is how, the longer your arms are relative to your height. So I'm a +4. So my reach is 4 inches longer than my height. I'm 5'10", but my wingspan is 6'2". And as you might guess, the longer your reach, or the more positive your ape index number here, the longer your reach is relative to your height, the easier it will be to fit a bike. So now you can take these two factors, your inseam as a percentage of your total height, and then your ape index, and those two things, based on where you fall on the continuum for each, can give you an idea of, am I a good fit or a bad fit? Or a difficult fit, you might say. The third factor that I was going to throw in here, and the reason I didn't include it as a rate from the beginning, is it's just a difficult thing to quantify, and it has to do with your athleticism or your stability and your flexibility. There's a ton of different ways to measure this, and granted, we don't necessarily want to get bogged down in having you run through 10 different specific tests and have it graded on a 3 or a 5 or a 10-point scale. But the better an athlete you are, the more mobile you are, the more flexible you are, the stronger you are, the easier it's going to be to fit a bike. So you can use these 2 or 3 steps, and it's pretty simple. It'll give you a good idea. If you go through this and you realize, and like, I'm not the most flexible and athletic person, so there's one check mark against you, and you do your inseam, and your inseam is your 48% of your total height. Well, that means your torso is a little shorter than average. So, and then your ape index, you're about even. It's a 0. So you might be a little tougher to fit a bike. I'll just take mine as an example. I'm reasonably athletic. I'd consider myself probably average, probably a little more flexible. So maybe I'd call myself a 2 out of 3. But my inseam is exactly average. It's 46% of my total height, and my ape index is +4, as I mentioned. So I'm a really pretty easy fit. I have long arms, and that helps me quite a bit. Take a look at these. Check out these 2 tests. Then you can kind of factor in how athletic you are, kind of in a really basic way, and see what. Let me know what you find out. I'm really curious to see this one. So I'd love it if people posted in the comments like what their numbers were, and it just might help. It might help other people too that are wondering, and then eventually come to this thread and give them even further answers. So that's it. Thanks, everybody. Let me know what you think. I will see you guys on the next video in 2-3 days. Appreciate it. Thanks.